Hi guys, welcome to the midweek session. So, over the past few days, there has been some pretty moderate movements. If we look at the candlesticks, we can tell immediately. So, one of the big things that happened was the tariffs that's been published by the U.S. So there may be some aftershock coming for the entire economy and crypto altogether. Uh, that's one thing, and the other potential black swan would be earthquakes. So, in the end of March, there were a couple of earthquakes here and there, and if that propagates to other um, tectonic plates or any countries, important countries, that may introduce a black swan event. That's another potential issue. So let's get into the charts for all the 13 cryptos. And before getting to that, you know what I'm going to show, yeah? Disclaimer, this video is not financial advice. It's basically an education and research purpose video, and your discussions are very welcome. So let's get started with Hedera. Hedera, if we look at the weekly chart, it has been coming down and down. So this is probably not the SOW. It may be somewhere around here. It depends on when the price bounce up again. So that was a bit flat, so I'm moving this towards here and keep updating it when it finally bounces up. So as of this moment, if we look at the candlesticks patterns, it has been continuously sliding downwards in terms of the weekly chart. If we dive deeper, before that, if we look at the volume, it's not crazily high over the past 3 weeks. But if we look at the daily, yesterday was actually a high volume day. The price actions over the last 10 days has broke outside of the downward channel. If I change it to a line chart, we can see this. I'm thinking how to term this. This is more like a discontinued pattern. It may sound contradicting, but if I draw this box, you understand what I'm saying here. So this was a downward flag, this one as well. So two downward flag or downward playground zone. However, if we discount this spike, like between end of Feb or 1st of March to sometime around March 9th. So if we discount that 1 week, if I draw a box over here, you'll see what's happening, right? So there may be a break of pattern here in the middle for roughly a week. However, it's more gradual downward playground zone or downward trading area, trading range, extending still towards the long-term playground zone, the white box. So I'll keep this over here for now, and we can observe whether there will be another break of pattern again the coming week or the coming few days, because if we look at this over here, that lasted for 22 days, almost a month, and now from here to here, it's already 24 days. So if the pattern repeats, we may be able to see a bounce outside of this yellow box. However, so far the price hasn't been able to go back to the short-term playground zone, the pink box. So we'll see how it goes for the next few days, given the volume has increased over the past 3 days. We'll see what the volume will look like as well for today and the next few days. So that's for Hedera. In terms of Sweetcoin, if we look at the weekly chart for Wyckoff, the SOW is confirmed. I don't have to move it. The good thing or positive thing is the price moved above this resistance line defined by the PSY. And not these. I'm trying to change to these. And the volume seems to be kind of supporting as well. It's been higher that week after week, and this week just started. Actually, no, it's 3 more days actually, and 21 hours, close to 4 days later, this will close. So if the trading volume continues, it may match what we had last week. But if we look at the candlesticks, the bodies are pretty short, so there are probably quite a lot of change of hands over here happening. Given like an SOW has been defined and the price, if there's a little bit of accumulation going on, brewing and other mini bounce to a level somewhere near the purple line, that's possible. That can be another LPSY before a full retreat all the way back into the long-term playground zone. If we look at the daily, as of now, the price is actually hovering around the yellow line, the resistance line defined by the PSY over here. So the downward trading range has been broken through above. So we'll have to see whether the price would return to the blue box and eventually to the white box for the next month. If not, if this is really some sort of accumulation that triggers a short-term bounce, we'll have to look at this resistance line defined by the bottom of the pink box at around $3.20. That's pretty much it for Sweetcoin. And for Stellar, if we look at the macro, the weekly chart, essentially, well, I would say I'll still keep the SOW here, the sign of weakness. However, the bounce is very low, so you can still term this an LPSY. However, I'll just skip it for the sake of simplicity. I don't want too many tags over here, given we already know it has passed some of the key phases. However, the price is still above the PSY level, and obviously still way above the entire accumulation trading range that happened between 2022 to late 2024. So if we look at daily, here we can see the upward trading range, or the upward flag has been broken. So again, upward flag, bullish, bearish sign. So like I said, this one downward flag, candlesticks pattern analysis, bullish sign. However, we never know how bullish is it. This is like a mini bull from 24 cents to 29.50 roughly. It touched roughly 30 cents, and then it comes down already over the past 5-6 days, and now it has once again returned to the long-term playground zone after what it did in the early March. So this time around, it will be very key, depending on like for how long it stays below the white line, because over the past 2 days, especially yesterday with such a high selling volume, this isn't optimistic for whoever is bullish. I would say this is more like a weakening sign with this very long volume bar over here. So let's take a look over the next few days and see how Stellar is going to perform. It's last time it's got some pretty good bounce, but this time it seems it's dying down quicker than the last two distribution cycles. At least as of this moment, it looks like that it would come further down. Really, it depends. Like last time during 2021, it dropped all the way to 19 cents 50 roughly before it had a stronger bounce back to 40 cents. So that can repeat. It depends on how all the macro factors or crypto positive sentiment are going to come together or match in time. So that's for Stellar. And for AVAX, from a macro perspective, if we take a look at here, the price has already fallen below or staying below for 4 weeks, 3.5, 4 actually, including this long candlestick, below this accumulation pattern between or within 2024. So this accumulation cycle, it's mostly above the one we had. We're seeing between 2022 and 2023. The current price level is somewhere close to the middle of that longer accumulation cycle. So there may be a chance that this is a level where new cycle of accumulation has started. So that's the macro. If we look at the daily, the price is still within this downward trading range or downward playground zone. So I just want to adjust a little. So that seems to be the gradient of the downward price action. I'll move it tighter as well. Yeah, roughly around that. So remember that the price would trade or bounce between the upper and lower with a center line. So we can see this period was bouncing between the bottom and the center, and then a longer period up here between the center and the top edge, and then switch to the lower. And now it's being traded between the center and the top. So well, but if you practice your stop loss or profit taking like with discipline, that shouldn't be a problem, whether that's there's a center line or not. And then in terms of volume, yesterday again, huge sell-off. I'm not sure whether it's because of the US tariff announcement. There may be some kind of impact to this. So that's pretty much for AVAX. Let's look at Chainlink. Link, from a macro perspective, obviously it has gone all the way down to the top of the hello Balduran. Am I pronouncing it correct? Balduan, yeah. So here it's basically the top of the accumulation cycle, the mini accumulation cycle that happened during summer of 2024. And if we look at this from a line chart, that's basically another SOW with a mini bounce, and now seeking to a lower point. It may be the support line that I've drawn. This is basically the bottom of the accumulation cycle, the mini accumulation cycle last summer. And interestingly, also the PSY level of the last distribution cycle that happened in, started in late 2023 to mid 2024. It all depends how bad the sentiments would be. Yeah, I recognize. Welcome Vietnam. And that here, if the sentiment is really bad, it can go all the way down to the accumulation cycle that we have seen during some started around spring, late spring to summer, and then finishing around autumn, early autumn in 2023. So the yellow line over here, I'll remove this one. This has passed already, although it's now showing for 4 weeks. It's more like a resistant line. So bouncing between these two yellow lines is the short term if nothing very crazy happen. And if sentiments turn really bad or the economy turns really bad because of the tariff, or if the war continue or new war start, the green line, where the same bottom as the previous longer accumulation cycle, would be the next price move. If we go deeper in terms of the daily chart, this is basically the price bouncing above the downward trading range. If I want to adjust this, I would do it this way because there's a peak over here. It's easier to change it to line chart. So we see the peaks, right? And these three peaks match each other. And I just need to tighten this a little so the bottom also match. So that seems to be the right, or at least how the price actions have evolved. So if I change it back to the candlesticks, if you remember what I said earlier for AVAX, if we draw a center line here for this playground zone, basically we had a little while trading above, and then on the top half, and a very long range that trade at the lower half, and now it's been traded back to the top half again. So anyhow, it's still within this downward trading zone or playground zone. Let's see whether it would trade all the way on the top half towards the lower support line, the yellow line over here, before it eventually breaks below and trend all the way to the bottom of the long-term playground zone. That would be a very bad scenario, given the bottom of the long-term playground zone is less than half the price of the long accumulation cycle between 2023 and 2024. That's for Chainlink. And in terms of Tron, if we look from a higher level, it's got a little bit of bounce. However, the volume is getting lower and lower. So remember I said the purple resistance line defined by the automatic reaction. So it tested it once 2 weeks back, and then it seems like it's going to test it one more time. It found a little bit of support through this yellow line. That's a good question, but very tricky. Let us get to, when we get to BTC, let's see what it looks like. But having leverage is very risky move, I would say, especially in these fluctuating market situation. Let's continue with Tron, and given the lowering volume, it seems like it's getting some difficulty pushing above and beyond the purple line. If we go deeper to the daily chart, obviously it's still bouncing within the the blue box, this downward trading range. Again, if I want to make it more, I don't want to go all the way here. This seems to be more like close to what the actions we have. So every now and then we have to adjust to make sure we are seeing the right thing, right? So as close as possible. It won't be 100% perfect. However, it's still going to give us some indication where the price is going. So last time I talked about this wedge, the blue line and the pink line. So this is getting narrower and narrower. So somewhere near May, end of May, if a price breakout doesn't happen, that's going to be something very interesting to watch. But we're getting closer there. However, like in some other altcoins, the selling volume was pretty high over the past few days. Let's see how the trend would continue. That's for Tron. And then in terms of Cardano, if we go to the weekly chart, the Wyckoff pattern, macro view, these SOW, I don't think it's it's similar to, I can't remember, is it Hedera or Sweetcoin? Similar thing happened. It kind of happens sideways and then drops further. So this SOW has to be moved. So again, after a sign of weakness, there may be a little bounce to have another LPSY like this, multiple LPSY before it returns to the long-term playground zone and start another accumulation cycle. Again, volume getting lower. If we look at the daily chart, the volume bar isn't as crazy as the other altcoins. However, it's still higher than the buying days. So if we look at this price actions, it's basically going sideways for a while and then do a little dip. However, this could be a sign of a bounce. Yeah, it will get more consistent. Like I said in the post, over the entire month of March, there was a very special project that happened. Starting this month, it should be returning, my schedule should be returning to normal. Thanks for your support. And so if we look at this, last time there was something similar, horizontal accumulation pattern, a little bit of testing the market, shaking out some weak players, and then it bounced back all the way to a short-term playground zone. This time, again, horizontal movement, a little bit of dip lower, and then there may be a repeat. However, whether it would be a big jump or just a jump touching the tip of the lower edge, it's only the big players can tell, right? It depends on how far they want to push the price. So that's one perspective we can consider instead of thinking it may go all the way into the white box. That can be possible, but given 2 days of staying above this line, it seems to have some pretty good support as of this moment. Let's see how it develops. And then for Dogecoin, if we look at it from the macro perspective, again, 4 weeks, we're into the 5th week that it's kind of staying flat. There seems to be some kind of price matching, or people are getting a consensus that this seems to be a price level that the buy side and the sell side are happy to stay around. And then, no, I don't have any open trades right now. No, actually I have one, just one. And then if we take a deeper look, the volume, it's pretty red over the past 7 weeks. this is mini green, and this current level is somewhere at the top of the last accumulation cycle. That's the mini one, similar to the other altcoins that we had last year. And also it's somewhere at the selling climax level that was in 2021. If we look at the daily, again, the price has basically walked outside of the downward trend. Right now is moving sideways, and this may be a new trend happening. It depends on how quickly it evolves. So right now it seems to be a mini downward trend evolving, much narrower range than what we have seen over the past 2.5 months, since mid-January all the way to last week. So this we'll see whether this downward trend, mini downward trend, will continue. I can leave a mini box over here, so by the time we get to the weekend sessions, we can take a look. I'll set this to just at this level. Okay, so that's Dogecoin. And for Binance Coin, from macro perspective, again, LPSY, we've got 3 of them already, so it's like it's getting lower, hitting the support, and then punching through a little the support and then bounce up again. So every time it hits one support, hits the resistance defined by the peak over here. Similarly, this defined by the buying climax, and then over here it's the AR. So if this weakening trend continues, not that this volume is saying so, because it seems to be declining, the selling volume is declining. However, if it does, then the next support level would be at around 490 or 491 roughly. However, I mentioned many times, Binance Coin is an exchange currency, so it's probably have some kind of noise built in, because if people trade frequently, they need the BNB, and then that's going to push the demand up a little. And if we look at the daily, so it's time to draw a new trending down playground zone. So this should be blue also, and just for this time interval. So this it's more gradual than this one over here we had during February to early March, mid-March actually. However, it's not too mild either, so it's almost parallel to the other one, just that the range is much narrower. I have 2 different ways of doing it. If you ask, normally I don't do much futures or options or like leverages. At most, I would do ETFs if there are leverage ETFs, if it's really if I'm really seeing the pattern. However, most of the time, like you said, holding is one good way, especially if in your country, or like depending on where you're staying, your financial institutions are offering some ETFs. Some do pay interest, some don't. However, for long term, if an asset is, or a coin is really going to continue to like exist and thrive and develop, that's not a bad idea. But like all the other ETFs, look at the management fees that could eat into your profit, depending on how long you do. And if you look at what I do, or like some people has left comment, I remember there was one comment asking why I don't like do the Wyckoff on a shorter time frame, like daily or even 3 hours, etc. So this is an interesting question, and for me, like longer term swing trade, especially if I look at Wyckoff, it's more visible or like more accurate maybe, compared to putting it towards a more frequent or like shorter time frame. So that's my preference after like many years of trading different kind of assets. That's what I prefer now. Like, I don't like to be too busy. There are many other good things to do as well, right? So let's close off with Binance, and then let's move on to Solana. So this is probably the trend going to happen in the next few days, and like the center line of the short-term playground zone doesn't seem to matter much for now, at least for the past 8 weeks now, since February 2nd all the way to now. That's 58 days already. It has been going up and down between the center line, so things are getting more bumpy. And like going to Solana, if we look at what happened here, the SOW can probably stay over here. However, the price is or seems to be developing a trend that's going to bounce between these two yellow lines. One is defined by the low of the PSY period, and this yellow line at the top is basically the resistance line defined by all these sign of weakness points. So there may be a chance that the next trading range for the, I don't know, next 2-3 weeks or even longer, maybe within this range if nothing really crazy happen, unless the economy starts to get worse because of all the tariffs and all the aftershock of that happens, and the numbers start to come out, like, you know, seasonal numbers every quarters when companies report their sales, earnings, etc., especially also employment, when companies start to get more conservative because of the uncertainty, things may get more ugly. And in terms of daily, last time when we drawn this, or last time when I talked about this, I did mention like it's probably going to bounce along this bottom line of the short-term playground zone, the pink box. So instead of following the blue for probably 2 days, it eventually come back to the box. However, yesterday's selling, similar to a couple of other altcoins I covered earlier in these sessions, this selling made it fall outside of the pink box again. So as of this moment in time, it's a good time to draw another like narrow box to give us some indication as to where it is heading. So here is a narrow trading range, so it seems like it's not doing much. However, the downward trend is still there. So if for the next few days we're still seeing this continuing, it is likely that it's going to test this yellow support line defined by the low of the PSY. So we have to observe how the volume develops. Like if we have just mini green with longer red bars, that's this trend is going to stay. So that's for Solana. And for Ripple. So if we look at the weekly, the SOW was over there already. It seems like we are going to have another one. So let's say we can put another LPSY over here. And if we shrink this and look at an earlier distribution cycle, way longer, 2022, like multiple LPSY before it finally returns to the long-term playground. So far this cycle for XRP, because of all the litigation that has gone away, with a more crypto-friendly SEC potentially, that's why Ripple is getting the push higher than what we have seen in 2021, and even higher peak than 2017. Yeah, it's better not to be too aggressive, especially when you are new to the market. It's I know there's an urge, or like there's I'm trying to think about the hormones that like push us to trade. Maybe over confident, or like we're seeing a trend, or maybe there's a breakout, or like maybe there's a bounce. Those are like easy ways that the big players are trying to trick the new players. So it's more important when we first start to train our discipline and like stay onto a systematic approach, like setting stop losses and like pushing them up along when the price go, and try not to do too much leverage, because we do make mistakes, right? So if you can like resist the temptation of all the potential profit you're going to make, obviously the best textbook approach is to do paper trade first, right? Test your strategy, test your discipline, how well you are maintaining your, like when you place order or not, or whether you push or set your stop loss or take profit or not. That's the safest way, right? Otherwise, when we first started, it's better to like place smaller bets and then just learn throughout the process. When you get the experience, you know when to like make your orders, or when to get out of the market. Once you get that kind of sense or experience, then it's the time to like you can play or put bigger orders. However, leverage is always a very risky thing to do. If you ask me, even if I were to do it, I'll only carve out like a tiny bit, or like even less than 10% of the risky portfolio money that I'll put into it. It's more like going to a casino, right? It's, you go there for fun, and don't think you can win the casino. That's the way I have in my mind. Like if I am going to put a very risky order, that is going to be a very low amount of money. So that's how we protect our capital to play the long game. So long story, back to Ripple. And so when we look at this, again, this is testing the purple line again, and depending on where the candlestick closes this week, it's going to be quite interesting, because if you remember what I said for a couple of weeks, these kind of long candlestick isn't very helpful when the price comes down. It doesn't provide a strong support. So the strongest support would be somewhere around this blue line, that's around $1.43. And well, given the lowering of volume, it will be interesting to see whether the bulls will successfully defend this purple line. And if we look at the daily chart, again, the price is still bouncing between or within this blue box. Remember, like if you are not new to these sessions, if you're new, this pale blue or light blue box, you might have noticed that's different from the other coins I covered earlier. It's because when it first developed, I was saying like the price may bounce when it hits the bottom line of this pink box, and it did, and then it tested the center line, and then now it returns to the bottom line again. So the blue box at that time when I drawn it, and when I drew it, English, when I drew it, it was still a hypothetical downward trading zone. So because of these movements that coincides with the pink box. However, right now it once again, if we look at here, this one, it tested the support of the red and like stay below or close below it, and then eventually the next day it bounced above, and now it's testing it again, and this time it depends on like today and the next few days how it's going to behave. If it does go below and touches the bottom of the blue and then bounce up again, this downward trend can be confirmed, and I will turn it to a more solid blue color. So that's for Ripple. And then Ethereum. Ethereum, similar to Ripple, it's within a downward trend. However, the difference is like within the long-term playground zone already, and 2 times it's been rejected when it tried to bounce above like the top edge. If we look at the macro, it's kind of telling similar story, and it's more alarming that the red bars are clearly higher than the green. The price level as of now, last time I drawn like a preliminary support level, like similar we found it here roughly 3 years back, also April. So this was the accumulation range that happened between mid-2022 to late 2023. Now that we are returning to somewhere around the top of that accumulation range, so then this may be an early like accumulation phase happened, and depending on how far it drops for the coming weeks or months, that may develop like a selling climax. So let's see whether that would happen. So that's for Ethereum. Last but not least, and probably the most important, Bitcoin. So here we're seeing some rather horizontal movements. We can like say it's probably trying to do a second test. However, again, these volume bars are telling us a story that more people are willing to sell than to buy. So from macro perspective, unless some tall green bars returns, it's kind of difficult for the price level to go back to the up first level or this second test level. If we look at the daily, so when I saw this a couple of days back, when I looked at the chart, I was charting this upward trading zone box. However, just a few days ago, even before I can make this session happen, this live session happen, and this price has already fallen back to the blue box level. So it's like a how should I say that, a fake bull movement that might have drawn some attention or some buy orders, and then somebody push it down immediately, and then again yesterday a big selling sticks. Are you watching on a mobile phone? Maybe that's why it's, I guess, I always get to think like for mobile users, I also worry that the charts may be too small for you to see on a mobile device, like mobile phone basically. If it's for tablet and computer or TV, I guess those viewers may be alright. Or are you asking like for some numbers here? So basically, if I draw a line, if this is going to stay somewhere near a trend where it's going, I would closely observe whether it's developing a new trend now, right alongside this bigger blue box. Remember a couple of altcoins that we have talked about earlier. Some of them has developed a similar price action or price movement that it's somehow broke out. However, it returns to near where it was for the past 2-ish or 3 months, and then like start going downward again. So however, the key price level doesn't move. It's still, the support is around 76,000. It got close like in mid-March, March 10th. Now that it seems that it's trying to go test it again. Because of this large red volume bar, it's like more people are ready to sell than to buy, at least for the short term, unless some good news or some whales are pushing good news for whatever going to happen in the world that brings BTC once again testing this level. So between 92,000 over here, 92,000, mid 92,000 to like 76,000, I know it's a wide range. It's like 16,000 range, but this is where it is now, since like it fell below the pink line in late February. So this period of 38 days we are in now, it's basically a bouncing action between this pink line and the yellow line. However, like whenever it bounces, there is some ups and downs that you can catch as long as you draw these playground zones. You know where the edges are, and that's where you want to get out if you really are doing day trade. Get in, get out, whatever that is, depending on the trades you put, right? So that's for Bitcoin. Basically, it's still at a risky level, like I mentioned a couple of times. This zone between the upthrust and the buying climax, it's going to be a very crazy area. Like we see these kind of big swings over the past 3-ish weeks. It's already like less violent, but if you look at these candles, it's still way more bouncy than this period. So it like a seemingly large range like 16, 17, 18,000 is not very surprising when I look at this chart. It can go, when it tests the support, it can go even lower, because unless there is like another accumulation pattern that we see similar to this one here, otherwise it's kind of difficult for it to go like all the way up to the green line at the top. We see all these steady buy and sell, and like especially when it tested here, there was some strong buying power. All right, over the past 6-8 weeks, we see longer red bars. Now it's bigger. Hopefully it's easier for everybody to see. At the bottom, we see more red than green compared to this period of accumulation. So we have to be very careful, unless like over this period of 4 reds, there are like consistently green lines and longer green bar, unless that happens over the next few weeks. Otherwise, this probably isn't a new accumulation cycle, like at least a mini one. That's how I read the chart. We'll see. This is like a research, ongoing research. If it happens that way, or another way, that's going to be an interesting input for our future observations. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for all the questions and comments. Look forward to seeing you again over the weekend. Have a great day. Safe trading. Cheers.